Good morning, everybody. This is David Danielson. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Phil Frost. We are super excited about having Phil with us today as our guest speaker in this webinar. He brings a ton of experience to us in the world of marketing analytics, online advertising, and sales funnel optimization. We're so glad that he could be here with us. Phil has a background and a master's degree in engineering management. He has a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth, which basically means he's a genius. And Phil enjoys living in Manhattan, running in his backyard, which is actually Central Park. And he has a wife, Erin, daughter, Violet, and son, Emmett. So thank you for joining us today, Phil. And let me pass the baton to you. If there are any questions, everybody, please drop them in the chat, and we will pick them up along the way and see if we can get your questions answered. There will be a short Q&A at the end, so submit your questions. We'll see what we can do to answer them the best that we can. And I'm just going to pass it over to you, Phil.
All right, thanks, David, and thanks to Conversa for organizing this. So we're going to talk about how to use Google Analytics to track all of your marketing. And here is what we're going to cover. I'll quickly cover why metrics are important, why I recommend Google Analytics specifically. Then we'll get into how to set up Google Analytics correctly so that you can track all of your marketing. I'll walk through some important reports in Google Analytics to see all of your different marketing channels and see the important metrics. At the end, I do have a special offer for attendees. And as David mentioned, we'll have a Q&A right at the end. All right, so David already gave the intro, so you already know my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI, and my business provides digital marketing services as well as training, like this training today. And we also have more in-depth courses at mainstreetroi.com/training. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing, and my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And David already mentioned, I'm also the proud father of these kids here. We've got Violet on the left, it's a little bit blurry. Emmett's on the right, and that's my beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle. And this picture was taken for Emmett's second birthday in April. So he's just over 2, and my daughter Violet's 4.5. You can see that was at his party. You can see the kids in the mirror there. All right, so why metrics matter. So I like to think of Google Analytics as a marketing report card. I showed my kids on the previous slide. They both go to daycare, and believe it or not, they actually have report cards, which is kind of funny. I don't think my parents were getting report cards for me until I was in grade school, but nowadays they have that for daycare, and it's pretty interesting. As a parent, I can see how my kids are progressing, where they could use additional help, and just kind of benchmark how they're developing. And you want to use that same approach with your marketing, and you need to have basically a report card that you can receive on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis to keep tabs on your marketing. And you really want to figure out where you need to improve and how your marketing campaigns are, quote, developing. And you also want to identify what I call your superstar marketing channels. So every business is going to have lots of different marketing tactics that you're going to test. And it's kind of like having an investment portfolio. You want to have different marketing activity going on. Some things are going to work better than others. And then you obviously want to invest more of your marketing budget into what's working. Those are your superstar marketing channels. And finally, one of the key takeaways today is that traffic to your website does not equal sales. That will be a recurring theme throughout the presentation. That is a common misconception. I hear a lot of businesses obsessing over traffic and really thinking that a certain marketing channel is working really well because they're driving a lot of traffic. But when you dig into it and actually get the conversion tracking, you might find out that that's not really a superstar marketing channel. It's just driving traffic. It's not actually driving leads and sales. So that's really the key metric you want to be evaluating for your channels. And then really quickly, why Google Analytics? So first, it's free. Who doesn't love that? It's pretty straightforward to get set up, and we'll walk through that in a minute. So it's free and pretty easy. It also works well with others. By that I mean it integrates with some of the other tools that you might be using, like Google AdWords. It's obviously owned by Google, so it links up with Google AdWords seamlessly. Links up with Google Search Console, so you can actually track a lot of your SEO metrics as well. And this is also an important point here. It's not going anywhere, at least from my perspective. And if you're going to invest time setting this up and then ultimately collecting a ton of valuable data in this tool, you do want to make sure that it's not going anywhere and you're going to have access to that data and that company is going to support that platform. So that's an important point if you're considering other tools out there. Google has proven to continually invest and improve in their tool. Okay, so that's enough background. Let's dive into how to set up Google Analytics correctly. And the first step, I find most businesses can do this one correctly. It's pretty easy. You just need to go to google.com/analytics. You create an account. Again, it's free. And then once you go through all the steps, you just have to fill out the form. Then you get to a page where it says, okay, copy and paste this code on every single page of your website. So nothing too crazy here. The code is going to look something like this. This is just JavaScript. Don't get freaked out if you don't know how to code. You literally just need to be able to copy that and then paste it into your website. And the good news here is if you're using a CMS like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, those are content management systems. A lot of times you can just put this code into one page, and then that will be applied across the entire site. So you might be able to just copy and paste that one time, click save, and then let's say it's WordPress, WordPress would then apply it to all the pages. And if all of that is foreign to you, just ask your developer to put that on every page. And that's important because if the code is not on the page, it won't track anything. Okay, so that's the first step. Pretty straightforward. Get the code on the site. Next step, I find a lot of businesses skip over this one, and it's critical. Again, traffic does not equal sales, so we need to be able to track sales in Google Analytics. So what is a conversion? If you have an e-commerce site, that might be an online sale. If you have contact forms, like a contact us page where there's a form, you want to be able to track how many people are submitting that form and where they came from. If you have a free report on your website that you're offering, you want to be able to track how many people are requesting that free report. And then you also want to be able to track your phone calls. So a lot of businesses, one of the most important metrics is going to be how many people are coming to your site and actually picking up the phone and calling you. And the goal I'm going to focus on today is called a destination goal, and that's really the most important goal in Google Analytics, and it's the one that most businesses will want to be setting up to track all of this. So here's how you get this set up. First, you need to go into the admin section of Google Analytics. So you'll log in and then get into the admin area. And then in the admin area, there'll be 3 columns. On the right column, you'll see it says goals. you want to click on goals, and then you want to click on the big red button that says create a new goal, or might have the plus symbol goal. And then again, you want to create the goal type is going to be a destination. In this example, I gave it the name Analytics Checklist Request because that's something that we offer on our site, a Google Analytics checklist. And then you need to define what the goal is or what the conversion is. And with a form on the site, the way you define the conversion or the goal is you need to find the thank you page of that form. Because if anyone submits the form and makes it to the thank you page, then that means they submitted the form, or they requested, in this case, the analytics checklist. So that's why the goal details, it says destination, and it says begins with, and that's the URL of the thank you page after you request the Google Analytics checklist. So that's why it's called a destination goal. We're going to track everyone who makes it to that thank you page. So you just copy and paste the thank you page URL in there. The reason I say begins with, because you can also have it exactly. I like to use begins with because a lot of the forms on sites will actually add stuff to the end of the URL. It might say Google Analytics checklist thank you, question mark, name equals Phil, email equals whatever at gmail.com, and it just adds a lot of stuff at the end. Well, if you use begins with, it'll still track it regardless of what gets added to the end. If you use exactly, it won't track it if stuff gets appended to the end of the URL. So that's a little trick there. I do recommend begins with. And then step 5 is optional. You can create what's called a funnel. And what you do there is you just define the pages that people need to go to before they get to that final destination or final thank you page. In this case, it's a simple one-page form. We've got the analytics checklist offer page. You copy and paste the URL, say if it's required or not. And this, if there were multiple pages, you can add additional steps. And then click on that verify this goal. That will verify whether or not you got that set up correctly and if there have been some conversions in the past. Hopefully that checks out, and then you click save and you've got yourself a destination goal set up. And you do need to do that for all of the forms on your site. Okay, so that at this point you've got the Google Analytics code on every single page, and you've set up goals for all of the forms that you want to be tracking on your site. Now, step 3 is to help Google Analytics determine where your traffic is coming from. So Google Analytics does a pretty good job just right out of the box. They know, for example, if someone came from Twitter.com, that's social media traffic, or if they came from Facebook.com, that's social media. They know if the traffic came from Google.com or Bing.com, they're going to label that as organic search traffic. So they do, again, a good job right out of the box tracking where the traffic came from, but in some cases they need some help. And that's where the URL builder comes into play here. We want to help Google Analytics determine exactly where the traffic came from and just make sure everything is being accurately tracked. Now, if you go to google.com and just Google URL builder, you'll find a very ugly long link, which I have here. That's the best way to find it. Just go to Google, type in URL builder or Google Analytics URL builder, and the full name is campaign URL builder. You can see that in the URL. And then what you're going to do is fill out the form, which I'll show you in just a minute, and it will give you a new URL that you can use. You just copy and paste that URL. and then you use that URL in your marketing campaigns to, again, tell Google Analytics exactly where the traffic came from. And this will make more sense, or at least it should, in this example here. So this is what the URL builder form looks like. And you just, let's say, I'll use the same example. Let's say you're going to promote the Google Analytics checklist. What I did here was just copy and paste the URL to our Google Analytics checklist. Just plop that right into where it says website URL. In this campaign source, you can see here I put Moz webinar. Back in 2016, I did a Moz webinar, and I wanted to track that traffic. So I put the campaign source was Moz webinar. The medium, campaign medium here, you can see webinar. If it was an email campaign, I would instead put email. Excuse me. If it was a paid advertising campaign, I would probably put CPC, which is cost per click. You can see the examples underneath the form fields here. If it was a TV commercial, I would put TV there. If it was a radio ad, I would put radio. So campaign medium is just the type of advertising or marketing channel. The other fields are actually optional. And then at the bottom, I gave it a campaign name, which is Google Analytics Checklist. And then you can see there's a blue button, Generate URL. And that created this URL right here. So it's the same mainstreetroi.com/Google Analytics Checklist. So it is the checklist. And then you can see, I think I have these highlighted. Yeah, here we go. You can see UTM source equals the Moz webinar, because again, this is, I wanted to track traffic from that particular webinar. You can see UTM medium equals webinar, so we know that it came from this marketing channel, which I'm calling webinar. And we can see the campaign, UTM campaign, Google Analytics checklist. And the most important point of all this is that those fields, those names, the source, the medium, and the campaign, those are all now going to be in your Google Analytics reports. And let's say you did several webinars, you could run reports and see all of your metrics across all of your webinars, or you could dig into individual webinars based on the UTM source, or maybe you want to dig in and just look at all of the webinars with the campaign of Google Analytics checklist. So this allows you to start slicing and dicing the data within Google Analytics based on where that traffic came from. Okay, so that's step 3, to again just more accurately track the traffic and allow Google Analytics to tell you, how much traffic did you get from a particular channel or a particular marketing campaign. And then if you did step 2, which was to add goals, you can also see how many leads and how many sales were generated from those channels. Okay, step 4 is only for e-commerce businesses. So unfortunately, if you don't have an e-commerce business, you will just ignore this slide here. But if you do have an e-commerce business, this is absolutely critical because it will allow you to track the revenue that you're generating per source of traffic or per marketing channel. So for example, you could see how much revenue you're generating from SEO. You can see how much revenue you're generating from paid search, display ads, Facebook ad campaigns, just from organic social media, from Twitter, from Facebook, Instagram, any other sources of social media that you're doing. You can see revenue directly from email campaigns. So this allows you to get really really valuable insight and actually calculate return on investment right in Google Analytics. And to get this set up, in a lot of e-commerce platforms, it's actually pretty straightforward. They allow you to just turn it on. So if you, let's say you're using BigCommerce or one of the other just off-the-shelf shopping carts, you'll want to reach out to their support and see if they have documentation on this, or maybe they have it already integrated so that it's very straightforward. You can just turn it on. If they don't have that, maybe you have a custom shopping cart, then you'll want to go to Google, actually Google e-commerce analytics, and then you'll find, again, another long, ugly URL here. Go to that URL, and you'll learn how to actually get that installed. So it does require a little bit of coding, unfortunately, so you will need some help from a developer. Or if you're using, again, an off-the-shelf shopping cart, I do know that a lot of those have that built in, or they at least have instructions that they can give you where it's a little bit more step-by-step. All right, so the name of this presentation was how to track all of your marketing. So what about offline campaigns? So obviously Google Analytics is tracking online campaigns. Those are the examples I was giving: SEO, paid search, display campaigns, social media, email marketing. But what about offline? So can you track print? Can you track radio, TV, direct mail? Can you track those in Google Analytics? And the answer is yes. Kind of gave it away just a minute ago. And here are the steps to track offline campaigns and actually get that data into Google Analytics. And the first step is to just revisit the call to action, or CTA, in your advertisement. And obviously, you'll want to add a call to action to go visit a landing page. Obviously, if your call to action is just to place a phone call, and they place that phone call, they're not going to go to your website. They're not going to trigger Google Analytics. If the call to action is just to visit the store and they go visit the store, they're not going to go to your website. So the way this works is you would have some kind of call to action in your sales material that says to go, let's say, go grab the coupon, go to this URL to get the coupon, or go here to learn more, go here to get the free report, for example. And then what we're going to do is create what's called a vanity URL. And that's important so that it's easy for your prospect to remember the URL and actually type that into their browser. So if they're getting, let's say, a direct mail piece and it's printed, the URL is printed, you want to make sure that it's easy for someone to read that and type it correctly into the browser. Or if it's a radio ad or TV ad, they actually have to see it, remember it, and then type that into their browser. And then we're going to use the URL builder, and that's why that was a critical step. We're going to use the URL builder to track the vanity URL. And in the example here, you can set the medium to, let's say, TV. So if you're running a TV ad, the medium would be TV. If it was a radio ad, you'd set that medium to radio. And here's where we'll kind of tie this all together. So I do have an example. This is a vanity URL or vanity domain that we own. So you can actually go into your browser and type in mainstreetmarketingtips.com. And what you'll notice is that automatically forwards to a different URL on mainstreetroi.com. So if you have a domain, you would set up domain forwarding, and that's something you would set up wherever you purchased your domain. I know that sounds probably technical and complicated, but trust me, it's not. If you just, let's say you bought your domain from GoDaddy, you just go into the domain settings, and there's literally a section for domain forwarding, and it's just a matter of copying and pasting a URL, where you want that domain to forward. So it's really, it's not complicated or technical. It's just copy and paste. And what you want to do is obviously copy and paste the URL with those what are called UTM parameters. That's the URL from the URL builder. So in my example, mainstreetmarketingtips.com automatically forwards to this pretty long, ugly URL, which has what I'm calling UTM parameters. So it's got the UTM source equals mainstreetmarketingtips.com. UTM medium in this example is email, but again, it could be TV, radio, print, direct mail. And the UTM campaign is email, newsletter, sign up. So that's a URL, a vanity URL or vanity domain, mainstreetmarketingtips.com, that I could print, let's say, on a business card and give that to someone. That could be, in a commercial. Just go to mainstreetmarketingtips.com to get XYZ. That's something that's pretty easy to remember, easy to type, and it automatically forwards to a different page, and then you can have that page tell Google Analytics what the marketing channel was by filling out the URL builder. So hopefully I tied that all together so it makes sense, but if you do have questions, again, we'll have live Q&A. And at this point, you've pretty much got the account set up so that you can track all of your different traffic sources, all of your different marketing campaigns, and you can as long as you set up your goals, you can track all of the leads and sales from those different marketing channels. So now we want to dive into how to actually run the important reports. So which metrics are important? This is another common stumbling point with Google Analytics. When I talk to business owners or marketing managers, a frequently asked question is, is X% a good bounce rate, or am I getting, am I hitting a good metric for time on site? And when I hear that question, basically I have to go into an explanation about this topic here, which is aggregate data versus channel-specific metrics. And I really recommend you just avoid looking at aggregate metrics. And aggregate metrics are basically, if you log into Google Analytics and right away across your whole site for, let's say, the last 30 days, Google Analytics will tell you the bounce rate, and it will tell you time on site. And that's across all of your marketing channels, across everything that you're doing, and that data doesn't really tell you anything. So examples, all monthly website traffic, average website bounce rates, average time on site. So again, that's across all of the different traffic sources. Rolling that up into an aggregate number, again, just doesn't tell you much, and it certainly, even if it was, let's say, a low bounce rate, it certainly doesn't tell you how you can go about fixing that. So instead, you want to look at channel metrics. And here are some examples. You could look at organic search traffic, and specifically the traffic trends over time. So that's a specific channel metric, which is the organic search traffic channel. If you're doing direct mail, and again, you're using a vanity URL in your call to action. You could look at your direct mail traffic and conversion rates. You could look at revenue from a specific monthly email promotion. And most importantly, you can look at conversions, whether that's leads or sales, per different marketing channel. And here's an example problem. I already mentioned this. So let's say you're looking at your website bounce rate and you notice that it increased from 20% to 50% from last month to this month, and you're obviously wondering what the heck happened. Why did bounce rate increase? And again, the reality is, if you just look at that aggregate data across all of the sources of traffic, that doesn't tell you anything about what happened. The solution is you need to dig into the channel metrics in Google Analytics to figure out what's going on. And when you start looking channel by channel, you might find that one particular channel increased dramatically in bounce rate, maybe even 90%, and a lot of the other channels had no change at all. So it's not really a site-wide problem. It's specifically limited to one channel. And that's oftentimes that can be the case. And then when you dig into a particular channel, another common problem is, did the bounce rates increase for just a particular device? So that's something else you want to start looking into. Let's say a particular channel did have a high bounce rate. Let's say it was paid search traffic, and then you dig in. All right, well, why did paid search traffic have a high bounce rate? Take a look at the bounce rates per device, and you might find that mobile traffic actually had a super high bounce rate, and that's because the mobile version of the landing page doesn't function properly. That's another common mistake. But ultimately, the key takeaway here is that the answers to these questions about what happened, why did let's say bounce rate increase, why did conversion rates decrease, the way to actually find the answers to those problems is to dig into specific channel reports once you've isolated the channel that has the problem. Or if it's across all channels, then you know it's a site-wide problem, and you potentially need to fix something with your website. But if it's limited to just one or a handful of the channels, then now you can dig into that channel and see if it's a particular device that's a problem. Maybe it's you could slice it by location or geography. Maybe certain geographies are not converting. But key takeaway is to actually dive in to the channels. And that's why it's really important to take the time to use the URL builder so that Google Analytics is accurately reporting on all of the traffic, leads, and sales for each of your channels. All right, so here's a three-step process to get some key insights from Google Analytics. The first step that I recommend is to get a high-level overview of your marketing. And this is going to be the most important report that you look at. You'll see top marketing channels by traffic, by behavior, by conversions. Then you want to take a look at your trends in each marketing channel. So not just looking at data in terms of, what's the bounce rate, time on site, but actually looking at trends over time. Are those data points improving, or are they getting worse over time? And then look at some of your top landing pages and get insight into the performance per landing page. So let's look at each of those and look at how to run those reports. So this is the most important report. This is kind of the home base, at least the way I use Google Analytics is I consider this channels report to be the home base. So it's an overview of all of your marketing channels. Here's how you run it. You're going to go to acquisition. This is all the navigation's on the left. You go to acquisition, all traffic channels. And just a reminder that the way the channels report works, a lot of it will work automatically, but you want to use the URL builder to make sure it's totally accurate. And here's an example. So again, on the left-hand side is the navigation. And you can see we're in acquisition, all traffic channels. And then you get a graph at the top. And then below is this table. And you can see the channel groupings. You've got paid search. You've got referral traffic. Other there, number 2, that's basically an indication that we have a tracking problem. Google Analytics is calling it other. So if you're seeing other, that's a red flag that you want to dig into that, figure out what that traffic actually is, and then make sure you're labeling it correctly with the URL builder. Referral traffic is any other website that's sending you traffic. Email is from your email marketing. Organic search is your SEO traffic. Direct is direct traffic to your website, and that could be people bookmarking your site. But direct is also a catch-all for Google Analytics, and this is another reason why it's important to use the URL builder. If Google Analytics does not know where the traffic came from, and it looks like it just came directly to the site, then it gets lumped into the direct channel. And if you see that a lot of your traffic looks like it's direct, that's a good indication that you need to clean that up by using the URL builder. And I'll give you an example of how this can happen. A lot of people use Microsoft Outlook for their email program. And let's say they get an email from you and it has a link to your site. Well, what will happen, Microsoft Outlook will when you click on that link, it will automatically load a browser, and it'll load the browser going directly to that URL. So from Google Analytics perspective, it looks like the traffic is coming directly to that page. Google Analytics doesn't really know that it came from email unless in that email, in the email URL, you used the URL builder and said that the UTM medium was equal to email. So if you track it correctly in your emails and all of your links have the URL builder tracking, then it will track perfectly. But if you don't, and the email program opens up a new browser and goes straight to your site, then unfortunately that traffic would get labeled as direct, and it'll be miscategorized. So those are the different channels, and you can see sessions. So those are the visits. So you can see how many visits you're getting per channel. You can see behavioral metrics like bounce rate, pages per session, and average session duration, so basically average time on site. And just take a look at the top. The top row is the aggregate data. And you can see bounce rate 46%. It doesn't really matter, is that good or bad, because we want to look at that number per channel and look at the range of numbers we've got here. Referral traffic is 27%. And then this other advertising, which again needs to be better categorized, but that's up to 88% bounce rate. So again, if all you were looking at was aggregate data, you'd say 46%. Maybe you think that's good, maybe you think it's bad, but that's hiding the fact that this other advertising clearly has some issues here with an 88% bounce rate. The display ads have a high bounce rate, social 61, and it's hiding the fact that referral here is pretty good. And the same is true with pages per visit and time on site. There's a pretty wide range here in terms of numbers, and you don't get that if you're just looking at the aggregate data. You need to really dig into each particular channel. And then you can also see conversions per channel. So you get, at the top here, it says conversions, and it says e-commerce. So in this example, I selected e-commerce because this website has an e-commerce component or an online shopping cart. If your business does not, then you would not select e-commerce. You would select goals, and it would show you goals instead of transactions. But I think this is nice just so you can see the power of the e-commerce tracking. You can see number of transactions and number of sales. You can see the conversion rate, sales conversion rate. Again, that pretty wide range of conversion rates there. And then you can see revenue per channel. So I mentioned earlier, you can actually run your return on investment analysis, and this is where you would do that. You could actually, change the date range to, let's say, last month, and see how much revenue was generated per marketing channel, and then obviously you would need to look at the costs per each marketing channel. All right. In addition to that table, I also recommend you look at the graphs per marketing channel. And that's to identify trends. You can see, is your SEO traffic going up or is it going down? And the way you'll do this, it's the same report, but then you'll click on an individual channel and dig into that channel to see the trends over time. And there's an advanced tactic. You can actually compare more than one metric, and I'll show you how to do that. So what I did here was I just clicked on paid search from that previous table. That was one of the channels. So I click on paid search. Now I'm just looking at the paid search channel, and right at the top you can see the graph. And then the second arrow there is pointing to e-commerce conversion rate. So I'm comparing two metrics here. I'm looking at sessions, which are, it's also visits, and I'm looking at the conversion rate over time. And it looks like I've got monthly data along the bottom. So each month, how many visits, and each month, what was that conversion rate? And what's wrong with this picture? This actually is a great example where right around January, we had an increase in traffic and a decrease in conversion rate. So that's what you're looking for when you're looking at the graph. You're looking at potential problems. So in this case, we've got a problem where we increased the paid search traffic, but we decreased our conversion rate. And from there, you would need to then dig in to see, what actually happened in January that caused that decrease in conversion rate. And you can also look at, this is a different channel. This is display, and this is visits versus bounce rate. And that just gives you the trend over time. And in this case, you can actually see the bounce rate going up over time. That's another key takeaway as far as bounce rate. Looking at just the bounce rate number doesn't really help you, but in this case, if you see that your bounce rate is increasing over time, that's a good indication that something is not right. potentially, in this case, looks like around August, maybe something was changed with the website. Maybe a new website redesign went live. Maybe you started testing a new landing page, and or maybe you started testing different targeting with your ads, and now you're getting a higher bounce rate. All right, and the third step I mentioned was digging into individual landing pages. And this is just so you can find the most important pages so that you can improve those. And you can run this report by going to behavior, site content, and then landing pages. And then another advanced tactic I want to show you is to add segments. So here's another example. On the left-hand side, you can see I'm in behavior, site content, and then landing pages. And then I'm going to click on Add Segment. And I'm going to select organic traffic and paid traffic. Those are two segments. And you'll get a report like this, where it's segmented out. Each row here, or each number, 1, 2, 3, 4, is blurred out because that's the URL. That's the actual URL of that page. And then below that, you can see the data is segmented by organic traffic versus paid traffic. So that's how you can dig into different segments, different channels per landing page. And again, it's organized by the acquisition, so the visits, and you've got your behavioral data, and then you've got your conversion data. All right, so we went through a lot here. Here's a quick recap. You can use this as a checklist. You want to add Google Analytics code to every single page on the site. Make sure you set up goals. Make sure you use the URL builder to track all of your different marketing channels. If you have an e-commerce site, then make sure you enable and get e-commerce analytics working. To track your offline marketing, you want to use a Vanity URL and have that redirect to the landing page using the URL builder tracking. Then we talked about reviewing your channels report. Use that as your home base. Then dig into each of your channels and look at those trends over time. And then finally, you can dig into the top landing pages on your site and improve those. All right, I mentioned a special offer, and I also mentioned that we do provide more in-depth training. You can take a look at that on mainstreetroi.com/training. And this is going to be, the special offer is a bundle of 3 of our trainings. The first course is the complete SEO tune-up to get your website set up correctly to rank higher in Google. Second course is focused on paid search traffic, so how to create a profitable Google AdWords campaign. So we walk through step-by-step how to do that. And then the third course is a step-by-step Google Analytics setup and reporting course, which just goes more in depth. And it's a live demo diving into Google Analytics to get all of this set up. You can see all of those courses are sold on our site for $97. That's a total value of $291. And you can get everything for only $97 by going to mainstreetroi.com/marketing bundle. So it's basically get 3 for the price of 1. And we'll open it up to Q&A here. On this slide, you can see the special offer link in the upper left-hand corner if you are interested.
All right, thanks, Phil. I hope everybody's learned as much as I have. I think this was a fantastic review of Google Analytics and making sure we could get all types of marketing into our funnel. We do have a couple of questions from the chat. We just want to hit a couple of those right now. And let me just, do you have access to them, Phil, or do you want me just to read them out?
Let's see. I don't have access to the questions. No, I can't see any questions.
Okay. Let me just kind of read them out to you. The first
Okay.
one is it better to use URL tagging or to use auto tagging through AdWords?
That's a great question. So for everyone that's familiar with Google AdWords, they have a feature to auto tag, and that just means Google AdWords will automatically add the parameter to the URL. And if you link up your Google AdWords with Google Analytics, I do recommend you use the auto tagging, and that takes care of your Google AdWords traffic. So Google AdWords will get tracked perfectly fine if you link the two accounts, your Analytics account with AdWords, and you turn on auto tagging. And then you would want to use the URL builder for your other advertising. For example, let's say you're doing Bing ads or Facebook ads, you would definitely want to set up those landing page URLs with the URL builder.
Perfect. The next question is from Alex. He asked, when I go onto the link provided for the e-commerce tracking, he says that there's a notice that mentions enhanced e-commerce. And he's basically saying, hey, what's the difference between e-commerce tracking and enhanced e-commerce tracking?
So enhanced, let me see if I can pull that up. There's additional features with enhanced, as you can probably imagine. I'm not sure which features are part of enhanced. So let me see if I can just go to that URL right now, and also confirm that's the right URL. So just load that up here. So they're saying, I see the note here, just for everyone's reference. The note here, important e-commerce plugin should not be used alongside the enhanced e-commerce plugin. Okay, so you can turn on, so basically in your admin area of Google Analytics, you'll be able to enable enhanced e-commerce tracking. And this notice is telling you just don't use these two plugins at the same time. And that's actually a little bit technical because we're talking about plugins to get the code working. And you may remember I mentioned, depending on what kind of shopping cart you're using, you'll definitely want to reach out to support there. If you're using a custom shopping cart, then you would need to actually read this and add the code yourself or have a developer add this code. And it looks like, so I'm not a developer, but it looks like there are plugins to help you get this code working. And you want to make sure you don't use the e-commerce plugin alongside the enhanced e-commerce plugin. So those are two developer tools that you want to make sure you're using separately. That's all that is saying there. And enhanced e-commerce just allows you to have additional reports, and it allows you to dig a little bit deeper into what's going on with your shopping cart and just slice and dice the data a little bit more.
Let's see. A couple more great questions here. There's one that's a little bit more tactical, Phil. It's they said that they have multiple accounts being listed, like as in like referral sources. One says account.xyz.com, and the other one is just xyz.com. And I guess they're asking about why account is called out, because it looks like self-referrals. They don't understand what that is.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that can be a problem with Google Analytics. So that gets into this concept of cross-domain tracking, which could be a webinar all in itself. But basically, if you have a website and let's say you have www.mainstreetroi.com, and then you link over to shop.mainstreetroi.com, when you start jumping over to different domains like that, you need to specifically tell Google Analytics to track those people as the same person. Otherwise, it gets tracked as a different person. So once you start jumping to different domains, it looks like a referral to that domain. So what will happen is if I click from www.mainstreetroi.com over to shop.mainstreetroi.com, shop.mainstreetroi.com looks like it just got a referral from www.mainstreetroi.com. And the way to prevent that is to make sure that you have cross-domain tracking set up. I actually have an article about that. Let me pull it up, and then because that's pretty technical. But let me.
I thought so when I read it.
If you Google mainstreetroi.com cross-domain tracking, you'll get to this article. There's basically, I think, 4 steps. Yeah, and you can see it's pretty technical. Add the same Google Analytics property on both of those domains. You have to add domains to your referral exclusion list. You add this linker parameter, and then you configure allow linker. All of that, I realize, is technical. You have to tell Google Analytics, hey, people are going to go from this domain to this other domain. Treat them as the same person so that you don't start seeing referrals from your own website.
I can send some scenarios after the call.
Perfect. So here's a good question from Steve. Steve asked a question. He says, how do you set up phone numbers on site to vary based on where traffic comes from? Separate numbers per campaign so you can track them more easily. The short answer for that, Steve, is that's exactly what Conversa does, is we help you design how you want to do that based on your specific needs. I'll let Phil chime in as well. But we offer technology that allows you to do that. We can either do it in a dynamic way or a static way, depending on specific use cases. But then we just link that data straight into Google Analytics so that you can get the reporting there as well.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. The dynamic number insertion, or DNI, is the technical term for it, and it will. If you're familiar with SEO and you're scared to have different phone numbers listed on your site, you don't have to worry about that, because this is all done with JavaScript code, and from Google's perspective, Google will see one phone number on your site, which is your main number, and then the JavaScript code will just dynamically change the phone number just for people, let's say, who came from Facebook, or just from people who came from a Google AdWords campaign, and people who came from a Bing campaign. So you've got all these different phone numbers based on where they came from, and you can have tons of different phone numbers dynamically being changed. But when Google goes to your site, and if someone else just comes to your site naturally, they'll see your main phone number.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. A couple other questions. I think we're almost out of town. That too. Let's see. A couple other questions from Joe S. on how to track calls with Google Analytics. Really, that comes back to leveraging a robust call tracking platform like Conversa, and then we provide the Google Analytics heavy lifting. You put in a couple of criteria, and we can automatically send that data into Google Analytics, and you can track it there. We'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that. One other question, which was, can we track the person who is visiting your website, but they are not completing the demo form? And the short answer is that Google does keep track of that information, but not necessarily in specific form. If you have other types of tracking on your website, then you can get that data. Maybe Phil, do you want to kind of chime in on that as well? I don't want to steal your thunder on that.
I'm not sure I understood the question. So somebody who comes to your site doesn't complete a form, that will show up as a visitor to the site. I'm not sure what you mean by how would you get is the question, how do you get the contact information of that person?
Well, I think they're looking at it as, can Google Analytics tell us who the contact is? And the general answer is not really, but you can match that data with behavior later if you have them fill out a form at another time. So
right.
I think it's kind of a loaded question, but the answer is yes and no.
Right.
So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Google is pretty sensitive to personal identifying information, so they just know that they don't want you to be tracking personal information through Google Analytics. And then, as David said, there are ways to get that data. If they do later on complete that form, basically everyone that hits Google Analytics is going to have a cookie with all that tracking data in the cookie.
Yep. All right. Well, unfortunately, I think we're out of time. I'm just going to see if there's any other quick question we could jump in on. But I think all of the others, I think we've addressed as best we could. I guess there was one last question around e-commerce that we missed, which is, how do we add tracking when we're using something like WooCommerce?
I don't know specifically how to do it, but if I'm sure if you Googled WooCommerce e-commerce analytics tracking, WooCommerce is a very well-known and popular tool. I'm sure there's lots of documentation on that. And then you would likely have to work with a developer to get that all set up correctly.
Yeah. Generally speaking, on any traditional WordPress site, you basically are you're still adding the Google Analytics code to the top of the page. It works basically the same way, but there probably is specific implementation for WooCommerce, like Phil mentioned. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much for attending our webinar today. Really looking forward to catching you next month. Unfortunately, I don't have what's on the calendar for next month in front of me, so we'll get it to you in email, and looking forward to catching up with you again. And Phil, thank you again so much for the valuable information. And everybody on the call, please take advantage of Phil's offer. The 3-for-1 deal sounds like a steal, and I'm definitely going to go take a look. So anyway, everybody have a fantastic day. Look forward to meeting with you again.
Thanks, David.
Yep, take care. Bye-bye.